Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for taking the trouble to watch our little video here. I don't actually know how long this is going to be. There's been a huge number of problems that we've been trying to deal with. Frankly, for the last 6 months, if it could go wrong, it has gone wrong. Those of you who know me know I don't do negative updates, so there's quite a lot of positive stuff later on in this, so please stay tuned. So where are we at? Balkan Fury and Madagascar ordered with our printers roughly 3 months ago. That in and of itself should have meant that we'd have got it late March, early April, maybe the middle of April at best. Unfortunately, the first company we had set up to do it went broke. They managed to steal a couple of dies when they went bust. Fortunately, the key one, which is the box die for the big games, we've got that. All the other dies that they had relating to 6 degrees, etc., seem to have been taken elsewhere. We can't get them. That's cost us a lot of money, so if we ever do reprint those games or do another 6 degrees card game, we're going to have to pay for more dies. So that's about £1,000 out of pocket right there. We hired another company. Someone we knew from the first printer went there. We got quotes. That company, their service provider, there's a print management group, you understand, they went bust. So we get more quotes. At that point, it's starting to look a bit awkward, but all good. We get that done, more quotes, take a look at it, have a heart attack, the prices have doubled. Some of you already know that. We've already talked about that in the past. We very, very carefully think about that and decide, yeah, okay, let's go for it. Place the order, they go bust. Yet another set of quotes. And at that point there, you're going to love this, the print manager actually went bust. You couldn't make it up. Fortunately, the guy we know, who shall remain nameless, had never given over our die. So he still had it in his garage, basically, which is a bit of really good news. Because that die is £1,000 on its own. There's 2 of them. One for the lid, one for the base. So that's the boxes, you understand. We get some quotes and the price has gone up almost by 100%. That would be 4 or 5 times the original price. That would mean that had we gone with that print solution, Balkan Fury wouldn't have been £250, it would have been £1,000. I don't know anyone's going to give me £1,000 for it. I wouldn't pay that. I don't see why you should. We argued the toss. Turns out someone was taking the mickey. So effectively fired that company. We also changed order quantities. We looked at specification. We gave the authorization to get some print work done on the counters. They sent us substrate samples. It all looked good. We get pictures from them and samples here of stuff. And the substrate they'd used essentially was a yellow cream, not white. Complete reject. Couldn't make it up. Then, sometime in the last 6 months, the merchant bank that handles our card processing, so you have to understand when you buy something from us, Payment Sense, process your debit or credit card just to make sure the funds are there. They pull the funds off it and they give that to a merchant bank. The merchant bank sits on it for any up to 10 days. And then that gets transferred to us. So we don't get cleared funds, minus fees and costs, etc., relating to that, usually for 7 to 10 days. They didn't tell me for 2 weeks that due to a change of ownership, and I'm not quite sure what they did, but they changed the name. It appears that they hived off part of their business. They didn't transfer records. So all you guys who ordered anything more than about £100, they blocked us getting your money. Retailers couldn't give me money. End users with larger orders couldn't give me money. I think you can understand that that was devastating for the business. We went absolutely berserk. I was on the phone shouting and yelling. I had to take legal advice. That cost money. I threatened them with the police because, to be perfectly honest with you, it's fraud. They'd taken your money, wouldn't give me it. So we can't then ship you your games because we haven't got your money. And if you read our terms and conditions, we say you'll get them within 28 working days, that's about 6 weeks, give or take, shipped within that period of time. We've had a few people try and reverse cards since. Sorry guys, if you've done that, you're in breach of terms and conditions and will be reported for theft, especially where we have in fact shipped the game. I'm not naming names, but I could. And that person's going to get a chap at the door from law enforcement because I'm not shipping something that I'm not getting paid for. I'm pretty sure that if you went to Amazon and tried that nonsense, you wouldn't get your money back. You get told to get stuffed. I certainly do know that if you go to a shop and pre-order something and you pay for it, it doesn't matter when it comes out, you're getting the game, you're getting the product. It's the same with us. We can't guarantee anything. It's not our fault that companies went to the wall, nor is it your fault. So what we are doing, despite the fact we should have put the price up on every single product we're getting printed by at least 50%, we're honouring the existing prices. So currently the maps are printed. I don't have them yet, but I know they're printed. The boxes are going to press the next couple of days. The counters, they should be printed by now, but they're not. I'll tell you why. A, we needed to get the substrate right, as you can imagine. B, the die cut company that we've used for the last 12 years ceased trading last Friday. Their last day of operation is the 20th of May. They have a die which is worth over £1,000. We want that die. We own it. We've already paid for it. We've actually paid for it multiple times because it's updated every now and then. I've been trying for the last 7 days, working days that is, almost a fortnight, to get another die cut company to come on board and do the job. You've all got my counters. Some of you don't, I guess, but most of you do that are watching this video. I think you'd agree the die cut has always been fantastic. What you don't know about is every single time we've dealt with this company, we've been mucked around. As of this morning, I'm told, yeah, well, okay, you can get someone to ship it. We can't provide you tracking if we ship it. I've never come across this. Every courier I've ever booked anything with, whether it's Every, Yodel, DHL, TNT, UPS, FedEx, Parcel Force, or DPD, or various other major companies that people have used to ship me stuff as a business, every last one of them has tracking. So that's absolute abject nonsense. I've asked them to tell me the dimensions and I'll book it with UPS or DPD or whoever it is that I can get to pick it up. Failing that, because that company happens to be in Leicester in England, which is a 40-minute drive away from Martin Potts' home, I've just asked him today, would you mind go over picking that up? He can only do that on Monday and he's got to take time off work to do it. But he's going to do it, so I'll get the die, hopefully 2 or 3 days after he picks it up. Then I can provide that to the new company that we're in the process of appointing to do the job. Thankfully, the gentleman who rescued the die, remember that, for the boxes, knows somebody. As a personal favour to him, they're willing to do the job at the same price or lower than the other company. We're saving a little bit of money. Not a lot. A few £100. In between times, I'm also trying to deal with my mother's estate. She passed away September last year. It's been extremely difficult for me because I was her carer for 10 years. I had to walk up and down the street, try to persuade her this was her home. She didn't think it was towards the end. You understand that happens with old folk. Got all kinds of problems with dealing with that. The government put the wrong date of birth on her death certificate. That took almost 6 weeks to sort out. The solicitor that had her will, I had dealings with them previously. They sued me, I won. They're not very good. It's a matter of public record that Brunton Miller solicitors of Glasgow are incompetent, negligent, and shouldn't be permitted to practice law, according to the sheriff in the Glasgow Sheriff Court. They refused to give me the will. They told my lawyers in Perth, Lindsay's, her good firm, to get stuffed. They ignored stuff. They put it in the bin. It took me threatening to take them to the Law Society to get the will. I didn't get the will to March. I'm now doing all the financial stuff, you know, going, you've all done it. Life insurance companies, investment companies, all that kind of stuff, the banks. So we're about a third to half the way through that. That takes time. It's also deeply upsetting. I find it really difficult to cope with. I don't expect your sympathy, but I do expect a bit of understanding. We as a business rely upon your support, but you rely upon us to actually get you the games we said we're going to give you. So this video is a bit of a rant in a way. I get help from my neighbour. He's 87. Ian wanted to come in here tonight and do stuff instead of us writing a set of bullet points to do this video. My partner, who did her cruciate ligament, God knows how she did that, to be fair, Julie, who we can get married to in June. Thank you all for your congratulations. Looking forward to it. Knackered her cruciate ligament, as I say. I had to spend about a week all but carrying the poor girl to and from the bathroom and so on and so forth. She's now on her feet again. She's trying to help me. You can't do things if you can't lift stuff. I tore all the ligaments in both my arms just before Christmas. Don't ask how I did it. I can still do my job. She couldn't walk. If you can't walk, you can't do the physical stuff she'd offered to help with. You know, packing games. That kind of thing. We're actually in the process of doing a series of videos because I don't think any of you guys really understand that for all the fact we've had a huge amount of help from wonderful people like Martin Potts, like Jeffrey Hicking, Andrew Allen, Bob Vail, Corey Manka, David Hughes, Eric Pierce, and so on and so on and so forth. There are so many people who have helped me with this. I'm sorry, guys, I can't remember you all. I'd have to have a game in front of me and actually read out the credits. Almost every single one of those people gave their time willingly in a world-class way to get a world-class product that no other business can do. Free. I'm the only paid person in the business. Right now, out of an income. I'm working essentially free to try and get this out. Because if I charge for my time, the company goes bust. That's a fact. We will survive this. We've actually been in a worse position when we did Mare Nostrum, or an even worse position when the run up to doing Barbarossa in some ways, because the cost of that was unbelievable. Some of you have very nice cars. I can tell you that you could buy a top-end Tesla for what we paid for Barbarossa. And I think it shows in the product. It's really amazing. These people are still working hard behind the scenes. So have I been. So now we go on to the really exciting, positive stuff. But bear in mind, everything, whether it's shipping, whether it's booking the print jobs, whether it's getting money in, whether it's doing marketing, whether it's sitting on Facebook, takes time. And I'm the only person that can do that. Other people do research. I'm the guy who analyzes that research and puts it into the product. If you like the artwork, thank you so much. I'd made it all. If you don't, sorry guys, I do my best. So let's take a look at software. Bob and I had a chat a wee while ago. I have not yet, because it's an absolute nightmare to do it, worked out and tested the map editor change that he's done. So it used to be that the file churned out information, we spat that through something, spat out the PDFs, and that's what you get in your board games, printed up by a company. There's now a second file comes out with that when it's exported from the editor. That file is editable in a text file. And what I can do with that is change the colours. So I need to do that. Then I need to give that to a printer, get it commercially ripped. It's going to cost money, but it will get done. Get it proofed, i.e. a digital proof. You know, it's just basically a glorified inkjet to make sure none of the colours that I pick go out of gamut. Because what we're doing is converting red, green, blue RGB to CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. Because all the presses in Europe are CMYK. And I'm aware in North America, some companies have RGBK presses. We don't in Europe. No one has them. not one company. The cool thing about that is when we do Last Mile Venus, and that's about to go on my computer, all the research is done. I just need to plug the thing together and do the rules. Do the artwork. It's not big. It means you'll get different map art. It won't be hugely different. We don't have time to mess around with textures and so on for it, but it will be a bit different. It'll look different. We're also working on trying to change the font on the maps. Not a lot, because actually the font's really clear and it's pretty useful, as is. You don't want to know how long it took Bob to decipher how that worked and come up with what is essentially a really pain in the backside, but usable workaround. It also means that when we do the First World War game system, we hope to be able to change the font to something that's appropriate to World War I. Something very old-fashioned. I think will make the game absolute cool. And we're going to use different colours again. Time correct period coloration. Similar to what we did with TSWW at the get-go. It's pretty cool, isn't it? I think it's really cool. Do you know something? I just wish we had something here I could put on the screen here and put it into this recording so you guys can see it. But as soon as we've got that, I'll let you see it. That's a promise. We keep our promises. We promised you Balkan Fury in Madagascar. Madagascar didn't take long to do. Balkan Fury did. I don't think you realise the huge amount of work involved in creating one of these games, especially when we find that every single unit in one nation has to be changed, especially when we've completely revised another nation, and then we find yet more information which changes pretty much every other unit in the game. That process is going to continue as we do reprints. We're bringing all the games up to basically a standard you see in Singapore. We're actually improving the various Navy things, so you're getting anti-aircraft capability in virtually every ship and so on and so forth. That will be rolled out in Balkan Fury, and I think you're going to love it. I think you'll really be surprised at just how different the game is. And I'm not even going to get into the 16, 17, 18, whatever it is, different types of partisans, the complete rewrite of the partisan rules that we had to do to make it work in the Balkans, because it's really different to what's in Eastern Europe. We need to show you how particularly communists actually create an army, blah, 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 all from partisan forces. That's not what happens in Russia. The communist partisans in Russia actually flip sides all over the place. That doesn't really happen in the Balkans. In fact, I can tell you it doesn't. Neither do the religious guys. They're their own sides. So that took a lot of time to get that right. We've redone the mapping again. I know this is what, the third time or something I've had to go at, particularly around Athens. It's a horrible piece of the world to map because it's so tight, there's so much there. I think it's a bit clearer again, it's about the best I can do. It won't be getting changed much again. Part of this job also goes and impacts upon Mare Nostrum 2. A lot of the work that we need to do for that has already been done. I just need to change the OB where it's wrong. And you'll see in Balkan Fury 2 some stuff that impacts on it. We've even provided a few counters for that. Not all of them, because you don't really need them. Mare Nostrum's a good standalone game, and it fits nicely with Blitzkrieg, and frankly, that's what you need. If you've got the old copy of Balkan Fury, please combine the three, do that. Don't use the new one, because it might cause a few problems with the OBs. They tie to Barbarossa, by the way, very neatly. We provided you a couple of new units for Barbarossa. They're in the mix because we found out, remember what I said, more information, different information, better information. So that changes that. You're getting a C-zone map in Madagascar, you get a lovely folder. And that's going to come in a new outer, a little one, that fits around that folder. Unfortunately, the company we work with there haven't got back to me. I have a horrible suspicion they've gone to the wall, but don't worry about it. I actually have a company that can do that job. I'm hoping that it's just someone's on holiday or off sick. I'll chase them tomorrow or the day after. If I can find time, I'll report on the outcome of that. Bottom line is, those two games are now at press. Subject to getting the die or buying a new die, which is another £1,000, you understand, for the counters, the game should be completely printed within 7 days. It then has to go through print finishing, and that, to be honest with you, is slow. And that also presupposes a space on a printing machine somewhere to do the job. I'm sure you heard from HMS GRD and various other companies with this decision or whatever, oh, we've booked a print slot. Utter rubbish. When you book print, the printers fit it into their schedule to keep their press running flat out. At millions of dollars or pounds or euros or yen or whatever, for these high-end presses, they generally work them 12 to 24 hours a day. And if it's high quality, accurate work, they only run it after the thing's been calibrated. So yes, I could pull the trigger tomorrow again on the counters. The first possible day they could be printed would be Monday. It's more likely to be the Monday after that and the Monday after that. Why? Because the printers calibrate their big press that they do the double-sided print on a Sunday night. My jobs are the first jobs on that printer in the morning. We aren't dealing with a fraction of an inch. We're actually dealing with fractions of millimeters when we do the counter art. And one of the things I'm going to do one day is record me doing some counter art so you guys can see it. Next, Operation Watchtower, Kamikaze, I Shall Return, Vengeance, Liberation, and the China incident. We'll deal with that one last. Also, Blitzkrieg 2, Mare Nostrum 2, and pretty much every other game or whatever we're doing that relates to World War II is completely reliant on having the US Navy and the US Air Force. I worked for 5 years on and off, actually near 6 now, I believe, on the US Navy. As we did it, more and more ships came to light that we needed to look at. That's not unusual. At some point, I know I'm going to have to do a little bit more in the Royal Navy with Corey for the British. The Royal Navy currently is about 1,000 ships. It should be around 1,500. I'm not quite sure where the difference is, but I suspect it's auxiliaries and the horde of things like trawlers and so on and so forth. In fact, it might be 2,500, including them. But a lot of that we can pretty much ignore because you guys don't really need. The only reason we get trawlers in Barbarossa is that's frequently the only real escort that went up to Murmansk at the beginning of the convoys to Russia thing. So the US Navy now has 2,500 odd ships in it. Most of them are warships. Some are auxiliaries, fleet oilers, submarine tenders, seaplane tenders, repair ships, ammunition ships, all kinds of stuff. You need them to support the fleet as it does its fast carrier attacks all over the Pacific. That's a limited resource, guys. This is not an infinite thing. This is not what you see in some of the games I've seen that deal with the Pacific, where, frankly, the Americans didn't do whatever they want from the get-go. They couldn't. They didn't have the oil. Not in the US. They had plenty of oil there. They had enough oil to support virtually the whole Allied war machine. They didn't have the oil where they needed it up front because there's too many other needs. For example, the whole of Europe, basically, the British operations there needed a huge amount of oil shipped across to the UK. Tanker space was at a premium because the losses, we could argue about whether or not that's Admiral King's fault. It's not really the point. Bottom line is, it provides a limit. You ain't got no fuel, you ain't sailing your ships. Sorry, it's the way it worked in history. Our games have one key design thing, which I don't think anyone else does. If you follow historic decisions, and yes, that does include the Japanese sitting on their hands for months, not doing a whole hell of a lot in Burma, you will get historical results with our games. So that's why we put in all this stuff that some of you probably don't think should be there. We put that in because it has to be there, because instead of giving you an idiot rule, it says, oh no, you can't do that. What we actually say to you is, yes, you can, Those are the assets do we want with them? Those assets are the same as the assets that people had historically. Obviously, we need to research it. So I have a Word file now. I can't remember how many pages. There's almost 800 pages, I think it is. Might even be more than that. I need to format that. It's going to go to 3 columns the way Mare Nostrum did, the way Barbarossa did. It needs reformatted. As soon as I get it reformatted, I'm going to PDF it. I'm going to have Andrew put it on the website. You get it free. You heard me. You'll be able to download that. There'll be minor amendments done to it as we do games. Obviously, we need to put in at starts and so on, which are not there for that. So what goes into Watchtower from that is going to be a little bit different to what you actually see in the file I'm going to publish. And it's of limited utility because even with Day of Infamy in print, that ain't the whole US Navy by a long shot. That will come as we release games. I've got to be honest, if I had realised just how big the US Navy was, we probably would have combined Kamikaze and Watchtower in one box. We probably would have combined parts of Kamikaze with I Shall Return. Because 2,500 ships, the US Navy didn't lose too many, mainly because they didn't do a whole lot, so ever sail backwards and forwards across empty ocean. We're rarely put in harm's way. Sorry guys, that's true. Because of that, we are going to have to print a whole pile of counters multiple times. And unlike the stuff in the Atlantic theatre, which was heavily modified, whether British, Free French, Italian, whatever, to cope with the threat there, yes, the US plug in lots of anti-aircraft guns, but we have a fairly good idea that's one change to the ship rating. In Europe, destroyers frequently change 4 or 5 times. Big guns taken off, torpedo tubes taken off, additional radar, huff duff, better sonar, you name it, more depth charges, new depth charge stores ahead, throwing mortars, God knows, all kinds of stuff. In the Pacific, the real change is usually pull off a set of torpedo tubes and add some 20 mil. I rather doubt it'll change the ratings just because of the way they work, but we'll have to check it. That's Corey's job, he's already on it. So, the US Navy is done for the whole war. The Royal Navy is more or less done for the whole war. Those are the 2 biggest navies. The Japanese are done for the whole war. The Italians are largely done for the whole war. I say largely because we will have to look at what happens to the ships at the surrender. It's not that big, but it has to be done. The Kriegsmarine is done up to July of 1943. Got to be honest with you guys, there's quite a lot of submarines to look at. Most of that's done. There's a whole pile of small craft. That's pretty much done as I recall. The big stuff, that's Tirpitz, does nothing. We know it sits in Norway, but it does bugger about every now and then, bombard Spitsbergen or whatever else. Then gets sunk by the RAF. Scharnhorst does virtually nothing until she gets sunk trying to attack a convoy. I think we've actually done something with that. I don't know if we published it. I'll have to go and look. If not, we probably will dump that into something other than Vengeance if we've got counter space spare somewhere. Those of you who know my games will know that there's almost never any spare counters. We're usually really short and generic, so I'm sorry about that, but I'd rather give you stuff that's interesting than a bunch of fort counters or whatever. So, US Navy's done. Watchtower is in my drawer. Well, on this computer, actually. The one that I'm recording this on, but that's not the point. We call it in the drawer because it's done. Corey told me a couple of weeks ago, about 4 weeks ago I think it was, he has now completed all forward deployed US Air Forces. That includes the 8th Air Force, 9th Air Force, 12th Air Force and 15th Air Force. In other words, everything we need to do Liberation and everything we need to do Vengeance. But what he hadn't done is, frankly, obscure, limited number anti-submarine warfare and naval patrol stuff for the Caribbean, South Atlantic and the eastern seaboard of the US, western seaboard of the US. We don't need the western seaboard. But we do need these from Seaboard stuff because Blitzkrieg and Liberation will have C-zone mapping across the Caribbean. We might delete that C-zone map from Liberation, just give you the counters, because if you buy Blitzkrieg, you'll have it. Why do you need it twice? US Air Force is therefore done. It's a global, it's done. Corey tells me he's taking a look at the Italians. I own Jack Daniels. If anyone wants his address and wishes to donate a bottle of Jack Daniels to Corey's I need to look at Italian army stuff fund, please let me know. I will tell you where he lives. You can post it to him. He will be very grateful and hopefully a little bit drunk. We have done a vast amount of work in this. Dennis updates me and I shall return. So that's the next game we're going to talk about in this video. He has done incredible stuff. He's got, as far as I'm aware, the Japanese pretty much done. He's talking to me about, hey, I need to find this flight here and that flight there of aircraft and I've got to do this, that and the next thing. He still needs to look at the partisans. You know, I'm likely to tell him, don't waste your time. The Filipino partisans, unlike the Yugoslavs, didn't form an army, guys. They didn't kill a lot of the Japanese because the Japanese basically massacred thousands of people in retaliation. They're an intelligence gathering tool, which is kind of what the resistance in Western Europe was. Yes, there's this story about them going, the US coming back to Mindanao and they're being abandoned, guys. You know what? They didn't kill much. That does get you an army, I guess, if you give them weapons and some training. So we'll have to look at that. I'm sure Dennis has already done it, because I know he's got the Philippine army there. He's mumped and moaned at me about the US Navy for weeks and months. It's done. He's got it. I need to finish the map of the Philippines. I don't have time to do that right now, because I actually want to get Watchtower moving. I want to get that out the drawer, get it on the computer and start doing the artwork. And I want to show you video of me doing the artwork. I think that would be really useful, because then you'll get the idea that, you know what, that's not getting outsourced to a graphic artist. John's doing it. So, subject to a discussion with Dennis, I'm hopeful that in the next few weeks we can say I shall return, certainly for TSWW purposes, is done. It's in the drawer. That then moves us to Liberation. Corey and I need to have a chat about the British OB for Liberation. We think it's predominantly done, but we know there may be gaps in it. We need to take a look at things in a, hey, what are we publishing approach now? But fundamentally, that's done. The US is done. I'm aware Corey has spent a bit of time examining the various US units that go into Northwest Europe. He's done that largely because he is not sure that the research he did years ago is as accurate as it could be. That said, it's still better than most. Fantastic. We still need to look at the RSI Italians. 4 or 5 divisions, a bunch of brigades, won't take too long, I'm hoping. The big, nasty, horrible bear that hasn't been looked at is a German Wehrkrieg system. We know it exists, we know the boundaries, we know some of the HQs, we know some of the brigades and so on are in there, but we don't know what the rate, we haven't really looked at it, we don't know how we're going to handle it yet. There'll probably have to be a specialist rule to deal with it. Unfortunately, the Germans do not, despite what you might have seen in other games, create, say, a training division and have the same units allocated to it over a period of time. The training division is really just an administrative HQ. The components of it, the regiments and battalions and so on, very often don't rate much, or if at all. So we've got to come up with an idea of how we're going to show this. Because these training units were chucked into line with minimal equipment, did pretty well usually. There's a lot of them as well. So we need to do that for Liberation, we need to do it for Vengeance. A whole pile of work's been done in Vengeance. I haven't looked at it for ages. Yes, we need to do the Navy. We need to probably play with the Soviet Army a bit. We definitely need to play with certain aspects of the Axis minor nations. I know what happens. I just need to do some numbers. I know that the Romanians flip side, so do the Bulgarians, but I'm also aware that they either had captured or were provided with captured equipment the Soviets took away. Should just be a case of delete anything Russian from most of these units and forget about them after that. So, subject to those things causing problems, we actually now can tell you the Watchtower, I Shall Return, Liberation, Vengeance, all pretty much in the drawer. 28 counter sheets in Barbarossa, 8,000 plane counters, give or take. Probably the same in Vengeance. It's going to be less in Liberation, probably about 2/3 of that, maybe 20. Pacific Games have just gone up in size. The prices are going to go up, just so you all know. If you want them and want it in pre-order, get it now, because I'm about to have to recalculate the prices based upon current print cost and the fact instead if you get, say, 12 counter sheets, you're probably getting 18 or 20, just because of the US Navy. Nothing I can do about it. So consider that. We haven't been sitting on our hands. We've been doing a great deal of work. We've been dealing with huge problems. We've been trying to get stuff done. It takes me between 1 and 3 days per counter sheet to do them. There's a couple of hundred counter sheets potentially you're going to have to get done. That doesn't include proofing it. That doesn't include typing up the orders of battle. And that doesn't include doing all the artwork for the maps. So guys, yeah, we're working as fast as we can, but we can't do miracles. I wish we could. I wish I had a graphics artist that I could dump some of this work on. Then we get to World War I. You'll notice the China incident, kamikaze, have not been spoken about yet. They will be, trust me. I don't know how long this video is yet. It's going to be a long one, I think, guys. So, thanks to Eric, we have a whole pile of stuff. A lot of it technically should have gone into HMS GRD stuff. It didn't. They broke contract. Why doesn't that surprise you all? Eric has very kindly given me pretty much carte blanche to use all of that information. All of it. We have already identified problems with it. That took us about 20 minutes. The Navy stuff in it's a joke. It's farcical garbage. It's unplayable trash. It's been binned. Jeff has developed the Royal Navy, the US Navy, parts of the Japanese Navy, the French Navy, the German Navy already. That gets us the 2 best front games naval-wise. The OBs for that are done. We're plugging in right now, and I believe we have the Entente stuff for basically the whole war plugged in. I'm meant to do the Central Power stuff. I can't do it. I don't have time, so I'm going to post down information to Jeff. He's going to do it. Then he and I need to have a meeting. Unfortunately, I'm getting married, the 7th of June. Jeff's at the wedding. He's an usher. Hopefully on the 8th, I can sit down with him and have a chat about how we're going to do the artwork and do unit ratings. If not, we'll be doing one of these Zoom conferences, team calls, whatever you want to call it. And at that point there, we will go through it and we will get the artwork started. So say thank you to Jeffrey. The amount of work he's done is absolutely awesome. And he actually is the guy who's done a whole pile of stuff in that thing I don't want to talk about yet, the China incident. Okay, so What are we going to do about the East Front in World War One? Frankly, we just need to do the Russian Navy, the Turkish Navy, and job done. Bulgarians, whatever. We're not quite sure where the dividing line between the two fronts is going to be. Coca-Cola, pleasant drink. Hopefully they'll see that and give me some free Coke, because it's keeping me alive at the moment. Not diet, by the way, don't like it. Yeah. So the Eastern Front really is Austria-Hungary and Russia and Germany. We know that Romania gets involved, we know Bulgaria gets involved, but that arguably should be in the Balkan game. Probably shouldn't be in the East Front game, although the Romanians maybe have to be, because anyone who's done a bit of reading will know that Romania basically got his ass kicked, thrown out of the war by the Central Powers. And the Russians were only just able to hang on to a bit of Moldova. The Turks, well, God only knows, but I do know we've got information. It's not going to be that hard to backdate maps. It's not going to, because the world didn't change that much. It's not going to be that hard, given the size of these games. They're not as big as World War II games, because there aren't as many units, and there sure as hell aren't any aircraft, or at least very few that are worth having in the game. It should be relatively easy to get these done. They're still monsters. You're still looking 16, 20, 24 counter sheets a title for the two West Front ones, and probably more, maybe 28 or 30 for the East Front. Don't know yet. Counter count's been going up and up and up and up as we go through stuff. And I'm fairly relaxed about that. I'm sat back in my chair, I'm not panicking, not because I'm not doing that. I'll be doing quite a lot of it, not because I'm not involved. I'm doing an awful lot of work in that. I've done about half the rules. I've done better than half the political stuff that you get to use with the games. So that's a major step forward. As you know, we've got some box art right behind me for the East Front. We're probably going to put that in pre-order once we release the next two games. Support it. So what is our pre-order? Well, you pay us money up front, so we can do the job. So I can give my team the resources they need. They're giving me time free, so only fair I give them computers, software, books, whatever they need. That's what your money goes on. It's not going in me. I'm not drinking it. I'm not spending it living. The flip side is, the trust side is, we'll give you games. You will get them. Just exactly when is hard to tell, because frankly, every single time we do one of these massive games, something gets in the way and screws it up. There's not much we can do about it. And I'm not going to ship you a game that I think is half-assed that doesn't work. They have to work. You have to open that box and go, wow, that's at least as good as the last one and probably better. And why isn't that cool? And then you need to play it and say, well, you know, bits that's a bit awkward, but the damn thing works. It's really brilliant. That's what I want you to feed back to me when you get my games. So yeah, you might be out of pocket for a while. But you know what? You're going to get something very special through the post eventually. And we will keep on doing it till we get these bloody games done. That's the plan. When I started this job, I didn't have grey in my beard, and I wasn't almost completely bald. I am now, and it's getting worse. So, World War I has progressed quite dramatically. The Between the War series has a lot of potential. I really want to find someone who can talk to me about the Korean War, particularly Chinese stuff. I do have OB stuff. It should be easy enough to do. However, it's a time thing. It's a time thing. That's why it's not in pre-order. That's why we just don't have the space to do it. We will get to it, guys, but we need to get some other games out and effectively mollify some of those of you who are not very happy with us. We're aware of that. So we're back to give us a bit of trust, give us a bit of support, spend some money and stuff that is in print if you don't have it, because we really appreciate every sale. It's how we keep the company going. Get behind the pre-order offering, because that guarantees the development can be paid for. Yes, people give me time, but please bear in mind, nothing we do is free. We have some videos that we're putting together that shows how we assemble the games. But we're also doing a separate series of videos where we actually take a look at all the books we have here. I'm going to try and persuade Corey to do something similar, because I think it's important. You see, it's not just me that's got thousands of pounds, dollars, yen, whatever it is, euros, invested in research materials. That's thousands of books scattered all over the world, which are plugged into our product. Websites printed out in case they go away. Thousands of sheet sides of paper used for that by Corey in particular. He loves doing that. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles read. People's theses. We go speak to all kinds of historians and try and get them to give us their notes or whatever on stuff that they didn't put in the book, which is technically useful. Doesn't always work, but yeah. You'll recognise the odd name here and there and the credits for our games. Thank you to all these people, by the way. They don't charge me for that. I couldn't afford it if they did. Nor could you guys. Because with all due respect, these guys are making serious money working for massive print companies and realistically could charge an outrageous amount of money for their intellectual property. It's very kind of them to let us use it. Especially the unpublished stuff. That's worth its weight in gold when we get it. We don't often get it, but we do. So that moves us through World War I. I've mentioned Korea. La Guerra, the Spanish Civil War. That's in the drawer. I've already spoken with Corey about that this year. We've come to the conclusion we want to get Watchtower to the point where it's essentially assembled. Then I can launch him at it to double check ratings, finish off ratings, anything it needs doing, without impinging upon me doing Watchtower. If I need a couple of character sheets, there's the thing about printing character sheets, by the way, they're always blocks of 4. For some reason, the printers don't really want to do a single sheet 4 times in one A2 sheet. Cut that down to the A4 counter sheets you all know and love. I'm not even going to argue with them. It's a waste of time. They just say won't take the order. So if it turns out it's 6 and we can maybe plus a generic, we'll do an 8 sheet with the navies for the Spanish Civil War. Certainly for the Spanish stuff. I don't think we'll bother with the blockade forces. They didn't do an awful lot, and a couple of counters for submarines handled what the Italians did. It's not a big deal, guys. That's small fry in comparison to some of the things we're looking at. So there is a plan in place for La Guerra. Kamikaze. We've started trying to get the information for the Japanese army together. Everything else is either done or can't be done until the Japanese army's sorted. Not bad, eh? Oh, I need to map Japan and bits of China and so on. I'm sure you can understand that that's part of the job to get these games out. We do have a major problem. It's called the China incident. Jeff and I did a pile of work a couple of years ago on the Civil War. We've got some idea how we're going to do that. We've got quite a lot of idea about what the Japanese have. We're not 100% sure what's inside some of these units. It appears a lot of them are just rear area guys chucked together and called an infantry division. They don't appear to have a barrel load of firepower. It kind of reinforces a view that I've got. The Japanese army is equipped to the same standard as the Italian army, but it's triangular or square instead of binary in its divisions. Yes, they have more small arms. Yes, they don't have this weird Italian refusal to put mortars in units in large numbers, but they're very similar. So I don't think rating it's going to be that much of a problem. Corey and I have discussed this a few times. We do have plans. I need to map China. That is proving, by the way, to be a horror story. The best information I have Real only deals with big cities. There's hundreds of towns and so on. A lot of them can probably be rolled into those bigger cities. I'm pretty sure the terrain hasn't changed that much. We can probably do something with that. But TCI is a huge title, a vast map area. We need to chuck a bunch of Soviet units in it. It will have Normanhan and the other one that involved the Soviets. And it will, of course, have whatever David Glantz called the Manchurian operation, August Storm, I think it is. By the way, he's one of the guys who's given us some information about stuff. Really good of him. So we've got all of that in the box for that, if you like. The US Navy's done, at least to the end of the Second World War. It is highly unlikely, given the absolute dearth of naval stuff, they were going to do anything US Navy for the Chinese Civil War. That'll be a remove from play, and if you annoy the Americans, you just get flattened. Because that's essentially what would have happened. It's the same with Korea. You're going to get, I don't know, a capability to launch X number of aircraft. Y turns Z hexes from the coast. Because nobody in their right mind in the communist bloc wanted to get into a fight with the USN in 1950 to 53. Realistically, that's what ended the Cuban crisis, the US Navy. So big, no one was going to fight with it. It's also really, really good. So we're getting to the end of this massive long video. I hope you can see we've been working really hard in the background. I've actually forgotten to tell you some really exciting stuff. Just remembered it, so I might as well tell you. In another conversation with Bob, he phoned me the other day there, completely out of the blue, and he started chuntering on about something. I think it's mono, I'm not really sure, I don't care. He tells me that the TSWW game code now runs in 64-bit. It doesn't zoom. And there's certain things you can't do because there's a problem with the libraries. It's the first time it's ever decompiled and recompiled into 64-bit code and actually ran. So even bugged, that's a massive step forward. So if you're interested in the software, subscribe to our YouTube channel. There will be more updates. There will be videos with Bob. And when you get an IT problem, give Bob a coding tank in London, well, actually Tonbridge, Wales, a call. Support him. Give him some money for his services. He's not all that expensive. What I can tell you is I have a Bob. The guy is brilliant at fixing problems. I've got a knackered laptop we're going to have to look at. I haven't had time, Bob hasn't had time, but we will fix it. So to be clear, he's been working really hard. I also know from speaking to him that the air was blue trying to get the damn thing to decompile, recompile, and do whatever it is they needed to get it to do. And he's got more swearing to do because I'm going to tell him I want a map editor. This nonsense of changing text to change a colour, stuff that I want to be able to use a colour picker and it does it automatically and saves properly. And I want that in 64-bit code. Got some really cool ideas what we can do with it. So that is where we're at, guys. It's been really annoying. It's been really, 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 really horribly hard. But we're getting there. We need your support. We need you on side. We need you talking in a positive way about what we're doing. We want new customers playing our games every single week. We are trying to get stuff shipped. That's the slow process at the moment. I'm sure you can appreciate that I'm working 1 or 2 days a week on an estate. I do need a day off here and there every week now. I am absolutely brain dead. I'm shattered. I'm so exhausted that I go to bed every afternoon for an hour or two now because I need to sleep. Dealing with printers is horrific. It's incredibly hard work. there is no trust. There cannot be trust now. So there's a good chance I'll have to go and watch stuff get die cut and so on. Could be a day or two out of my life, but if it needs doing, it needs doing. So what we're going to say to you is keep supporting it, keep believing, because believe me, we're still here. We're still fighting for you. We're still fighting for us, and we're still getting the product put together and getting it out the friggin' door. It's slower than we'd hoped. I'm really sorry about that, but there's nothing I can do about it. When stuff happens that's not in my control, I will work as hard as I possibly can to fix each problem as it comes up. Once that's fixed, I will tell you. Do not expect me on Facebook every 10 minutes. Andrew's there a lot because he's trying to let you guys know, without getting into too much detail, what I've been doing. So this video is me backing his story up that we have been working really hard on your behalf. So thank you so much for supporting us. We need more. We'll always need more. Every company needs more. Keep buying the games. Keep spreading the good news. Spread the gospel. TKC's games are world class. Tell them that. Martin will help. Mark Poposky, I know, has been helping do, queries. Tom Wenk is about to get a whole pile of files so we can get your vassal modules sorted out for certain things. You know what, guys? It's all coming together. Be excited. Don't be angry. Don't be disappointed. And don't be upset. Have a brilliant week. Have an even better weekend. And I'm hoping Andrew can get this up very quickly because I want you to see it sooner rather than later. Have a good one. And thank you very much for taking the trouble to sit and watch this. Take care. See you in the next one. Goodbye.